What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a P.O. Box, and Locals, Patreon. And all of these, all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to, provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. Larry, I figured, let's start a conversation off. There's not much happening today. So what do you want to wing it, or what do you want to do?
Sure. We'll share apple pie or key lime pie recipes,
There's nothing happening in the world. We just talk about 80s movies for an hour. That would be, just to not bore the audience. I mean, it's a dead time right now, right?
Not too bad you can't play some Buffalo Springfield, their famous song, "There's Something Happening Here." What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a guy over there with a gun.
I think of the Leonard Cohen song, "Everybody Knows." Poor get poor, the rich get rich, but everybody knows.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of all this. I posted a note on my Substack on Saturday night, and man, I've been getting so much heat. I put it on X too. So much heat where I said Trump's presidency just ended. The MAGA movement is dead, and people were just pissed. Right? I put it on my personal Facebook too, and I got so much heat. And the events unfolded on Saturday night. You're just like, all right, what is going on here? We're in a war, but then you're seeing this, and you're just like, Iran responds back, and I'm like, what the hell are we living in? This is pro wrestling. This episode is brought to you by Vaulted, launched by McIlvaney Financial Group. With Vaulted, I literally just tap a button, and bam, I own physical gold stored in a professional vault. I can also take delivery at any time. Extremely simple and less expensive than any other method. The do-it-yourself way to buy precious metals. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to vaulted.blbvux.net/coffeeandamike. I mean, look at how easy this is. The Vaulted app on my phone, I can access it at any time.
All right, so let's start at the satellite view, and then we'll work our way to terra firma and get to the ground level view. This had nothing to do with Iran and its enrichment of uranium. This had nothing to do with Iran trying to get a nuke. This is as much a fabricated crisis as the March 2003 invasion of Iraq was. And, in that case, in 2002, the Bush administration spent an entire year trying to build up and convince Americans that we had no alternative, but by God, we got to take out Saddam, or else we're going to die. He's going to attack us. He's going to kill us. And there were desperate attempts. There's this one chick by the name of Lori Milroy. Oh, my God, her life mission, as I recall, she may have had a relationship with a Russian or a Ukrainian, but her life mission was to convince everybody that Saddam was in bed with Osama bin Laden and was behind the attacks on 9/11. Well, it wasn't true. And all this current effort to portray Iran as this rogue state, building a nuke, it's just another damnable lie. Most Americans don't understand that for well over 21 years, Iran has been first signed on to the International Atomic Energy Agency, is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Two things that Israel is not. Israel does not sign on to IAEA and is not a signatory to Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's a rogue state, but Iran's the one that gets treated as being a rogue state, even though by signing the IAEA, it started allowing in 2003 inspections foreign inspectors going into its nuclear facilities. And with the signing of the JCPOA, the West got full, complete access, including videotape, active cameras. So unlike Jeffrey Epstein, oh, the camera went out, we don't know what happened. You had cameras all the time monitoring what the Iranians were doing. How do you think Israel knew the names, identities, addresses, phone numbers of the Iranian nuclear scientists they killed? They had penetrated, either they had or some third-party country had, maybe the CIA, my old outfit. They had human sources working with the IAEA that passed that information to Israel. That's how they located and killed all these people. So, in theory, if you're a signatory to IAEA and to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, then any attack upon you would be roundly condemned by IAEA. It would be seen as an act of war. IAEA hasn't said a goddamn word about both the attacks of Israel and the United States on Iranian nuclear facilities. Well, guess what's happened now? Before we get to that, let's point out that the intelligence, CIA, the intelligence community, in this case there's 5 agencies: CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, National Security Agency, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, and State Department INR. Those 5 different agencies agreed, and have agreed for over 20 years, that Iran's not building a nuke. Why? Because we had sources inside. They had confidential human sources that were able to report what was going on. That's now gone. By these attacks, by allowing these attacks to take place, and the IAEA has basically been exposed as a collaborator with Western intelligence. Iran has now suspended cooperation with IAEA. Grossi is hollering like a stuck pig, oh, we got to get back in and inspect. And to quote Donald Trump, fuck you. That's Donald Trump now. That's Iran's message to IAEA. And the legislature in the Iran had just voted to permanently cancel the relationship. If Iran doesn't, they're fools. If they allow that relationship to continue, they are, they're signing their own death warrant. And I don't know what they'll do. I just know what I would do if it was me. They may even withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Now, what's really interesting is that with Donald Trump's bombing of those facilities, Iran withdrew its uranium, its enriched uranium. It's either in basically, let's call it dust, soil, like soil, sand, or it's in gas. But it's been moved to a secure site that has not been unveiled or reported to IAEA. And it would not surprise me if Iran went ahead and made the decision now to build a nuke. I think you'll see in future intelligence estimates from the intelligence community that they'll have to conclude we don't have any evidence to support the claim that Iran is not building a nuke. Now, and so I think, Iran, again, I'm thinking as I think. I'm not trying to put myself in their shoes. The only lesson around the world is that if you're Pakistan or South Africa or North Korea, you don't have people lining up to invade you, particularly the West. They leave you alone. And this entire issue about nuclear enrichment, again, it was a scam. It was staged. It was a pretext for attacking Iran. The real issue was to destabilize the regime, replace it with a government that's going to be a lackey of the United States, because the real goal is to weaken Russia and China. And Iran's role as a new member of BRICS and as a major supplier of oil, it is something that, from a strategic standpoint, Iran shouldn't be allowed to have those kinds of relationships with Russia and China. Now, I think one of the real mistakes that Trump has now made in launching these attacks is that he's compelled Russia or Iran to seek closer ties with Russia and with China. We learned from Vladimir Putin last week that Russia had offered Iran a year ago a defense pact along the lines of what they offered and signed with North Korea. In other words, if you're attacked, we're going to come to your aid. Iran rejected it. Alistair Crook told me, and I think Alistair knows what he's talking about, that let's call it the moderates, the pro-Western elements in the Iranian government, they didn't want to go down that path because they still thought if we do that, the U.S. won't like us. They won't let us go out with them on a date. But if we don't do that, then we'll curry favor with the West and they'll be our friend. Well, those guys look like idiots now. And it appears that Araghchi, the foreign minister, during his talks with Vladimir Putin, presented a letter from the Ayatollah to Putin. What could that letter have said? Is it likely that the letter said, "Hey, Putin, go pound sand. We don't want anything to do with you"? No, I don't think that was in it. Hey, congratulations on celebrating the invasion, the 84th year of the invasion of Russia, the Soviets, by the Nazis. I don't think that was in it. I think it was really more likely one of two things. Dear Mr. Putin, we really made a serious mistake in rejecting your very generous offer to have a defense pact with us, and we would like to accept that if it's still on the table. And or, dear Mr. Putin, in light of these unjustified attacks and the betrayal of our scientists by the IAEA, we have made a determination to withdraw from the IAEA and from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and will proceed with building a nuclear weapon. Understand that this weapon is not directed at you. It is for the safety of our society. Those are the two possible messages I think were contained in that letter. But, I could be wrong. But it's something what you have to entertain as a possibility. Defeating Iran is like a rook, a knight, a bishop on a chessboard. It's an important piece. It's not just a pawn. And it's a linchpin between Russia and China as far as securing economic prosperity in West Asia and Central Asia.
So Iran got enough notification though on Saturday night. That's what I find just so bizarre about this whole thing, because everybody knew what was happening. Like, it's a stage act.
No, it's not. Let me show you why it's not bizarre. It's not the first time this has happened. Back in 2017 and then in 2018, there were two alleged chemical weapons attacks in Syria. And I say alleged. They weren't carried out by the Syrian government. They were carried out by British intelligence with CIA assistance using a group called the White Helmets. These were staged. They were staged in a way to they were false flags, create a pretext so that the West could come in and bomb. Well, Trump made the decision, we're going to hit this airfield and we're going to hit it with these tomahawks. The general at the joint command center in Al Udeid, it's an air operations command center, got on the phone with his Russian counterpart and said, "Hey, Vladimir, listen, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. This is when we're going to do it. This is where we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it." Gave him all the information. And the Russians said, "Pasiva, thank you." And off they went, pulled all their stuff out, got rid of all, any sensitive equipment that could have been destroyed, cleared the base of personnel. U.S. went in and bombed basically an empty base. blew up a bunch of sand. We did that twice. It was coordinated. It was theater. Whether Trump knew it was theater or not, doesn't matter. At the military level, it was pure theater. Wasn't real. So now we see Trump in overdrive claiming, what a success, incredibly, we obliterated, absolutely obliterated these facilities. No, they didn't. But in any event, it's not going to prevent Iran from reconstituting its enrichment program. I would refer your listeners and watchers to YouTube. It's called 0 Days. It's a documentary. It was produced around 2015, I believe, 2016. It was about the Stuxnet virus and how that attack was carried out with the assistance of the United States, but by Israel on its own initiative. And the analysts had told the presidents, both Bush and Obama, "Oh, don't worry, man. We hit. This will destroy Iran's nuclear enrichment program. It's going to force all of their processing equipment. It's going to shake it, and it's going to collapse and break. They'll be down for years." They were down for a month, maybe 2 months. It was very brief. My point is, all these intelligence estimates and claims like that in advance oftentimes turn out to be wrong. And so this was, this whole thing, I think, with the U.S. bombing those sites was to create a story. And here's the story. We have now destroyed all of Iran's ability to enrich uranium. It's destroyed. It's gone. It's obliterated. It'll never come back. Take that with a grain of salt. And Iran has retaliated against us, but they're ready to give up the fight. So therefore, you're going to declare a ceasefire. And the reason for the ceasefire is Israel was getting crushed. I don't know how many international airports there are in Iran. I imagine as many as 10. But Israel had not shut down all Iranian airfields. Israel had not shut down all Iranian ports. Iran, by contrast, had shut down Haifa as a port and was in the process of shutting down Ashdod as a port. It shut down their only international airport, Ben Gurion. They had shuttered the oil refinery, so Israel was now having problem producing diesel fuel to run its trucks and tanks. They hit and destroyed key military headquarters buildings, airfields, research institutes, and businesses. And in the process, had depleted their air defense system so that they had no means to fight back. Israel needed an escape plan. So this whole show, we bombed them, we destroyed them, we obliterated them. So, okay, Israel, you win. And Israel, hey, we won. Just like the United States, we beat those Houthis so bad, they capitulated. And I'm still, I wish all the Monty Python guys were still alive. I'd like to see them do a skit as a bunch of Houthis, and the Houthis are sitting there watching, Fox News, and there's Donald Trump saying how the Houthis capitulated. And they go, capitulated? Did you capitulate? No, I didn't capitulate. Did you capitulate? No, I don't even know how to spell capitulation. They go back and forth. They didn't capitulate. The United States retreated. And in this case, the United States has thrown another, hey, we won, we got victory, massive victory, massive. It was obliterating. There's nothing left. God, you look at the hole and you can see all the way through to the other side of the earth. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, but, Trump's getting away with it.
So then was it an agreement then to have Iran shoot a few missiles in Qatar at an abandoned or an empty military base?
Yeah.
Is kind of a
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like I said, that's been done before. That's what happened. After Trump ordered the death of Soleimani, the Iranians said, "Hey, we're going to strike back," and so they picked a target, coordinated with the United States, because Iran really has no interest in getting into a war with the United States. And the reality for the United States is we can't afford the logistical cost of getting into a protracted war with Iran. Do you realize that Iran is 3 times the size of Ukraine physically and 3 times the size of Ukraine population-wise? So, big place. And there's no way in hell we're going to put troops in there. And without putting troops in there, we're not going to get regime change.
I'm just, the other thing too, and I didn't think of it the night of, but these planes, they fly in to Iranian airspace and there was no missile defense. And it's
right. Well, now, this is Iran's fault. When Israel conducted its retaliatory strikes on October 27th of last year, Iran's air defense system actually worked pretty effectively. And Iran and the United States collected intelligence off of that and were able to develop some countermeasures that they launched a cyber attack on June 13th that took the entire system down. The Iranians got the system back up and running, but it was still not on par with a Russian S-300 or S-400 system. And what's interesting is we as I mentioned earlier, we've learned that Putin offered Iran the full defense pact, offered Iran the air defense system, and Iran turned it down. However, Russia did have one S-300 and one S-400 in Iran at the Bushehr nuclear power plant, and where Russian technicians are working. And Russia notified Washington and Israel, basically said, that's where we are. If you attack us, you're attacking Russia. Understand that. Stay the hell away. They stayed away. Didn't touch them. But none of the systems were active, apparently, whether they were defeated through electronic warfare or turned off. It's a little bit like that whole raid, the raid on bin Laden. We flew surreptitiously into Pakistan. We told the damn Pakistanis we were coming. They turned off all the radar. It's like the toll operator in the movie Godfather when Sonny Corleone shows up. Toll operator ducks down, and all the other bad guys start shooting. They knew it was going to happen. It's just one of those. It's a ploy.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody about bin Laden. I still, as a person that wasn't paying attention back then, the fact that he was on dialysis, the guy's walking around on a cane, and they can't find him.
We knew where he was. Pakistanis had been hiding him. Pakistanis are keeping him basically, I think they're being paid by the Saudis just to keep him from causing mayhem. But, we shot and killed a guy with kidney disease that couldn't get out of bed.
What were they waiting for on that? I mean, was it just an ace in the hole that they knew they could go to in any given moment?
They waited. It was all part of let's get Obama reelected again. Obama. It was a campaign event. That's what it was. We got bin Laden. Yay! Well, look how tough we are. Woo! And so things are not always as they appear, especially the initial reports. Always take them with a big grain of salt, with some doubt.
Do you think what I said at the beginning of all this? Do you think Trump's presidency has ended with the events over the weekend, or where do you think?
He has damaged himself beyond repair with about 10 to 15% of the MAGA base. The groups, the people that support folks like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. He is, I think he's damaged. I think he's damaged MAGA beyond repair. There's still he's still got a sizable percentage of true believers and folks who, they'll swallow every lie that Donald Trump coughs up. But there are a number who have just said no. I mean, mine's anecdotal, but I'm talking to some people who were pretty strong supporters of Trump who are now just saying no. This is we're enabling the very thing that we claim to be against.
What I find is so ironic is, people that, and they're not watching this stuff all day, and I'm not comparing myself to you in terms of being an analyst, but that, watch Fox News.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't even realize they're
propaganda
just
central,
surrounded in lies on both sides of the media. But yet they can't, they're just in denial, or they just don't want to hear it of where we really are.
Right.
And Paul Craig Roberts said this when we were talking. He said, patriots can easily be indoctrinated. I never thought of it like that. Because they believe there's good guys. How many times have I heard good guys and the bad guys? Good guys and the bad guys.
So let's look at the lies. Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism. Simply not true. Which element of Islam has been responsible for, let's call it 90%, 95% of all terrorist attacks against Western interests over the last 25 years? And a terrorist attack is an attack on civilians for political purposes. Those would be Sunnis, not Shia. Now, some would say, oh, yeah, but Iran was helping the Shia militia in Iraq attack American troops. Well, the guys wore uniforms. It's called war, okay? Put on your big boy pants and stop crying like a bunch of bitches. Iran was doing nothing different than we would do and have done in Ukraine to Russia. So if that's the definition of terrorism, then we're terrorists, okay? So just, everybody calm that crap. You look at the groups that are listed consistently as being in the top 10, the most active terrorist groups. Not a single one are funded by Iran. The only exception to that is in 2023, because of October 7th, all of a sudden, for the first time, they list Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah as top 10 terrorist groups, all because of October 7th. Prior to that, they weren't listed. They weren't listed in 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016. You know who gets on the list in 2017 and is there for the next 7-8 years? Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Who's its leader? Oh, Mohammed al-Jalani, a.k.a. al-Shara, who's now currently the president of Syria. Installed by us. So we reach out, we embrace an ISIS terrorist who's killed Americans, beheaded people, and we give him a big damn bear hug and put him in power. And yet we're sitting here getting the vapors and laying on the fainting couch. Oh, Iran's the number one sponsor of terrorism. It's a lie. It's just not true. And, people will argue that with you. Good. Bring the facts.
What is Israel's, what was their response to Saturday, and then to, when Iran put those missiles in Qatar? And how are they feeling now? Not that but if you had to guess.
Well, they didn't, better to have those missiles hitting Qatar than hitting Tel Aviv, Haifa, Nevatim Air Base in the south, Beersheba. Israel was being crushed by Iran. frankly, the Iranians, I'm sure they had their reasons. I'm sure they were talking to the Chinese and Russians. They're trying to de-escalate. But if I was them, I would have kept it up, forced Israel to surrender, because Israel could not have survived. I don't think Israel could have, frankly, survived another 3 to 4 weeks with the sustained missile campaign. Well, now maybe the calculation on Iran was they didn't want to back Israel into a corner where Israel would feel compelled to use a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, there's a woman I've had on here a few times. She wrote a long post on X how she could not get out of Israel. She couldn't fly out. She was supposed to go to a conference in, I think, Munich or somewhere in Europe, and she couldn't. Not only could she couldn't leave. There were bombs being dropped 1 kilometer away from where she was at, and she's a Canadian citizen. She reached out to the Canadian embassy, and there was nothing they could do for her. She's like, I'm literally on my own.
Yeah. I mean, that's never happened to Israel before. Never. And that's why Trump was so eager to get a deal done on this, basically to save Israel. That's what he was doing. Saving Israel, because Israel would have been, they only had one oil refinery that was destroyed. Haifa was closed down. Ashdod, the second port south of Haifa, it was now being attacked. It could have been shut down. The IDF headquarters, their version of the Pentagon, was hit. Mossad headquarters hit. Unit 8200 headquarters hit. Apartment buildings of key military personnel hit. And Israel they were cut off with movement to the outside world. The only thing getting in was coming in via military airlift.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how small of a place Israel is. It's not a large country.
No, it's very. It's not even as big as Jersey. Maybe more like Delaware in terms of size, but it's. It is. That'd be an interesting question to ask. AI. What state in the United States is most comparable in size to the state of Israel?
So where does Israel go from here?
Well, they've got to start rebuilding. I mean, this is they put together this elaborate plan that had been in the works for some years to decapitate the leadership in Iran and force a change of government. They want to get rid of the mullahs. Their calculation is if they can, get rid of the mullahs and put the Shah of Iran's son back in place, then, they've got a winner. They failed. And I think now Iran has been awakened to the nature of the threat. And what this exposed is really how poor Iran's own counterintelligence security services were. They completely failed to detect any of this and prevent it. But now they are moving out, and they are identifying people. They're capturing them. They just executed 3 today that had been part of the plotting. And so there's going to be there'll be some blood flowing in the streets. And at the same time, Iran's going to, if they're smart, they're going to dramatically expand their military intelligence relationships with both Russia and China. If they don't, then I think it'll still be a matter of time before the Iranian government's ultimately destroyed and a government friendly to the United States is installed.
Well, so you still think that's a real possibility? This current Iranian regime will not survive?
Well, if they don't change course, if they continue doing what they were doing prior to June 13th, then yes, I think they'll be destroyed. I don't think they're going to continue doing what they were doing prior to June 13th. I think they're going to change. I think they're going to build up their air defense systems with Russia's full cooperation and assistance. I think they're going to improve their counterintelligence capabilities. Again, Russia's going to come in and help train them and help them adopt practices that will identify these foreign networks. And then Russia's also going to be working, carrying out its own covert action operations in Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan has been basically a staging base for a lot of these attacks against Iran. So, but it's not going to be waged out in the open. It's going to be a clandestine war.
What about the ceasefire? Will it hold, in your view?
Uh, it will end at some point. Yeah, I think the ceasefire it will hold at least for another 2 to 3 months. I don't see it immediately going away, simply because, Israel suffered more damage than Iran. I mean, just the size difference alone. Iran's 27 times the physical size of Israel, 10 times the size population-wise, 11 times larger in population. So it's far easier for Iran to absorb the blows than it is for Israel. Israel's small. Let's say Iran has 10 international airports. Israel has one. Iran has multiple ports that can be used to bring goods in and out of the country. They're still open. Israel only has one, and that's been damaged recently. So, Israel doesn't have an unlimited pool of labor. Israel doesn't have a large, robust industrial base. Right now they're shooting these Arrow missiles, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, as their air defense missiles. They'll fire a minimum of 2, as many as 4 or 5 against one incoming Iranian rocket. Well, if Iran fires 25 missiles and Israel launches 4 in response to each of those missiles, that's 100 missiles, Arrow 2 or Arrow 3 missiles fired by Israel. They only make 25 to 50 a year. Just do the math. They can't sustain that. And that's been reported in both the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post.
So for now, this chapter is closed.
Yeah, I think so. We haven't seen the full story from behind the scenes in terms of the role that Russia played and that China played in getting an end to this, but I think they played an important role, particularly Russia.
What about, you read all this stuff about the Strait of Hormuz. I can never say it right. Hormuz.
Hormuz, that's it. You had it.
Will the United States attempt to... First of all, I feel like it's not easy to close that thing. I mean, I follow Sal Mercogliano, who's a merchant marine, and he said it's never been closed before.
Well, it's actually, it'd be easy to close, but you got to ask the question: who's the largest recipient of oil exported from the Persian Gulf?
Chinese.
And India. 80% of the oil in the Persian Gulf goes to Asia. Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, India, China.
Japan.
Yeah, and Japan. So why would Iran want to shut down the Persian Gulf? Because it's got support from Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, China, and North Korea as well. So there's it made zero sense. Once I saw that number, I said, they're not going to close it. They're not going to mine it. There were people talking about it, but they obviously hadn't looked at it strategically. So, but it could be blocked. Now, if 80% of the oil coming out of there was going to Europe and the United States, Oh, I think Iran would have blocked it in a heartbeat.
What about all I believe everything happens. All, connecting the dots on events, and the NATO summit today. I don't know if it ends tomorrow or yesterday, today.
Yeah.
And these countries are talking about increasing the military spending. Is that timing of all that? That this stuff that occurred over the
Oh,
weekend, and now here we are.
oh yeah. They're saying, oh, by 2033, we're going to have 5% of our GDP. Come on. What are they going to increase their military spending on? Uh, None of NATO, U.S. and the rest of NATO combined, cannot produce the artillery in an entire year. They cannot even match the production of artillery shells that Russia puts out in 3 months. So they're going to raise their defense spending. Good, bunch of poodles. These are Mexican Chihuahuas. These are little bitty nasty dogs. Large bite, but they're not, large bark, but they're of no military consequence. It's an exercise in futility. It's sort of embarrassing, but they're pretending, and Trump is going along with the farce.
He really is the ultimate showman with all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's an entertainer in chief, but says repeatedly ridiculous things. He's really hurt his credibility because again, nobody. Did you hear his answer to one of the reporters at the press conference? The reporter said, "Hey, you said you were going to end the war in 24 hours. Well, what happened? Did you not mean it?" And he goes, "Oh, I was just being sarcastic." Really? Go back and listen. He wasn't being sarcastic. He really believed it. Then reality intruded. So that's why I say he says a lot of things with a lot of certainty and emphasis. But there's always reality that crops up, and it turns out he's not true.
Shifting to Russia, Ukraine for a second, just what makes sense to me, and not what do I know, but he could easily just cut off the funding to Ukraine.
Yeah, the war would have ended already. He hasn't done that. He's just enabling the war. Part of it is that there are U.S. companies making a lot of money off of this. A lot of money. I know there's this one company that provides drones to the U.S. military and to other countries around the world. The stock this morning was at 176, and it jumped $54. So it's now up over 200. It's almost $230 a share. So there's some companies getting fabulously wealthy off of this war. As long as they keep the war going, money keeps flowing. That's why Trump hasn't put an end to it.
So you see that continuing on, Russia, Ukraine?
Well, to a point. The Russians secured the last bit of territory in the Lugansk Republic that had been held by the Ukrainians for the last, 10 years. They're finally pushed out of that. They're out of Lugansk. Russia will probably finish clearing Donetsk, I'd say, by the end of July. Maybe sooner. They're moving north. They're coming into Kharkiv and Sumy. They continue to move west to the south in Zaporizhia. They're moving north. They're moving towards Mykolaiv. So Ukraine doesn't have the ability to stop them. And Russia is increasing its troop strength, and it's moving with a deliberate force.
how do these countries in NATO? First of all, did you ever think, one of the things that people were calling for was for the United States to leave NATO?
Yeah, we should. We should be out of. There's no need for NATO. NATO. NATO has outlived its utility, and because it's predicated upon trying to create a false enemy, claiming that Russia's going to invade Europe. Russia doesn't need more land. Why would it invade Europe? It doesn't need any resources that Europe has. Russia's the number one country in the world in terms of natural resources. It's sparsely populated compared. I mean, it covers 11 time zones, for God's sake. So this is just ludicrous. But it's fear mongering on the part of the West so they can justify, as Donald Trump is doing, $1 trillion defense budget.
Even though they don't have the resources to be able to increase these budgets.
No. Oh well, they can increase the budget. They can increase the expenditures, but to buy more tanks, well, you can't buy what you can't produce. So there's an actual limit. Like and this brings us back to Israel. Israel we've sent Theater High Altitude Air Defense Systems, THAAD, THAAD. Each missile in that THAAD costs $13 million. It's being used to shoot down a ballistic missile that may cost $500,000 to $1 million. And when that THAAD fires, it's got to be at least 2, maybe 3 missiles. So you're not just firing 13 million, you could be firing $39 million worth of missiles to destroy a $1 million missile. Does that make any kind of economic sense? Absolutely not. And it's not like those missiles are just rolling off the production lines in the United States. Just the opposite, not the case. Excuse me. So, Patriot missiles, Lockheed Martin produces 550 of those a year. The Israeli arms industry, IAI, they produce the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3. They churn out maybe upwards as many as 50 a year. But in modern warfare, you're fighting on an industrial scale when you're using up massive quantities. Let me just give you a fun figure. I love this fact. Right now, to build an F-35 jet, it takes between 18 and 24 months. Okay? During World War II, the B-24 Liberator bomber, guess how long it took to build the B-24 Liberator bomber?
24 to 36 months?
63 minutes. 63 minutes. That they could assemble it. Now to get it all the thing wired so it could fly, 18 to 24 hours. So in other words, it could turn out a plane a day. Now it takes us almost 2 years. That's the difference between the industrial capability we had in 1943-44 and the lack of industrial capability we have now. We've created an entire military system where the defensive weapons are so expensive and the offensive weapons are much cheaper. You can use a drone to take out. Just think about this. A B-2 bomber costs $2 billion each one. $2 billion. Let's say that you're flying a drone at the end of an airfield where a B-2 bomber's taking off and you can get that drone to fly into the intake port of the engine. That plane goes down. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it'll happen one of these days. Or it'll happen to a commercial airliner. But drones are a technology that's it's not going to. They're not going to disappear. You're not going to put them back in the box. And they're going to be used to launch terrorist attacks on civilian infrastructure. And then there's going to be a big, jumping around with people's hair on fire and hopping on one foot that we've got to build, new electronic warfare countermeasures to defeat those drones. That's coming.
I think we've also seen, the effectiveness of the Iron Dome, right? That was supposed to be the...
or I think you meant to say the lack of effectiveness of the Iron Dome, or the failure of the Iron Dome. Yeah, it got beat. It couldn't stop the Iranian missiles.
And yet they want to put a golden dome in this country?
Yeah. You know why they're calling it the Golden Dome? Those companies that get the contract are going to be making lots of gold. Got to keep those military industrialists happy. Keep them lubricated with the money, your taxpayer dollars flowing into their pockets.
People push back when when I've said this. This country the United States doesn't build anything anymore, but weapons. That's what this country has now. So overpriced weapons that don't work that well, despite Donald Trump's claims about, we got the best hardware in the world. No, we got the most expensive shit. That's for sure. And if those things aren't being fired, then these companies, they're making that's all this country produces. And people will push back. They're like, no, they produce a lot. Show me what we manufacture here anymore.
Yeah. We got, I guess, BMWs in South Carolina. Tellurides in Georgia, but again, we're not at the industrial level we were 84 years ago.
How do you think that I said this the other day when on here? I feel like, and if I'm wrong, for all the people that'll get pissed at me, I will admit it, and I'm wrong more than I'm right. But I feel like throughout this term, Trump's term, by the end of it, I don't know if he'll be hated, but he'll be not as liked as he is today, where it'll continue to just decline, and even to a point where you just might not even see him that much by the end of it.
Yeah. I think his approval rating is down to 41% now, so it's dropped over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks. So it's he's damaged it among some of the MAGA base, and also some among the ardent Jewish base. Mark Levin is just beside himself over what Trump did. It feels like he's betrayed Israel. And Trump keeps, telling lies, telling sweet little lies to himself and to the American people. So, he's ruined his credibility. And you got to have, a president needs credibility when there's some real hard decisions come, that people got to trust that he's telling them the truth. I think everybody now just says, we have no idea if Trump's telling the truth, lying, we have no confidence. So I think there's a growing segment. There was always a strong anti-Trump, Trump derangement syndrome crowd. But there's a new group in the middle that had voted for him this last go-round, like Joe Rogan, that are now embracing Thomas Massey. And, here's Trump attacking Massey in the most juvenile way, just a personal, insulting way. And, shame on Trump. You expect the president to act like an adult.
Did you notice that in his first term?
No, this is where I think he's really revealed he's suffering from age, because his, when, like the other day, when he was at that press conference yesterday, just for hopping on board the helicopter to go to Andrews, and where he says with respect to Israel and Iran, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and that's one of those 7 deadly words that, according to George Carlin, you couldn't say on at least public television, and Trump got let out the F-bomb. It's just, I'm not pretending that presidents haven't talked that way in private. but at least they have enough sense to, when they're on camera, not to go out of the way and do that. And I think there's a few, Christians out there who are, got a thing about language that are really, I think, are quite offended by that.
It's funny too. You don't hear much from Elon anymore.
Who?
Elon Musk. You don't hear much from him.
Who's that? Sorry.
Well, but
come on, man. Come on. I'm setting you up here.
But he was so around. He was by his side all the way up until taking office. He was always there, walking out with him on Friday afternoons, leaving, boarding to leave D.C. You barely hear from him anymore.
Yeah. I think he's gone back to business. God bless Elon for putting up, opening up Twitter, or making X.com a free platform now. I did get to spend some time with Elon's dad when I was in Moscow. We chatted for about an hour and a half. Delightful guy. You can tell where Elon gets his brains. His father's a bright, accomplished man in his own right.
Last question: what happens in Gaza now?
The war is going to continue to drag on, and Gazans are going to continue to die, and the world will continue to ignore them. So the Holocaust will continue. The only thing I think there's salvation for them is a collapse of Bibi Netanyahu's government, and maybe that'll happen. They have suffered serious damage from Iran. Whether they can easily recover from that's a whole nother matter. They've gone to great lengths to cover up and hide the actual damage that was done to their airfields and military facilities. So we'll see. And I know that Hamas has not stopped fighting. They just ambushed and killed 7 Israeli soldiers earlier today. So they're going to keep it up.
Where can people find you, Larry?
Sonar21.com.
As always, thanks for taking time. I'm sure it won't be too long before we speak again. And, I always look forward to our conversation. So thank you.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. That was a fast hour, wasn't
it? They always are. We had nothing to talk about.
Yeah, nothing. I'll get you that key lime pie recipe.
Mic drop.